Good afternoon, Facebook group, and everybody here watching. I expect some people to be joining here on the on the live Zoom link here soon. I sent the link to quite a few people, and I jumped on a couple minutes early here today. So I'll keep my window open to admit new people in. And we're going to dive into today, as you guys saw the topic, and you guys probably saw I posted a poll this week, asking for 6 different topics. This one got about 40% of the vote between the Facebook poll and the DMs. I got votes from a story I ran on my personal timeline, and I posted that all in the recent posts, talking about what we're going to cover. But yeah, the main aspect we're going to cover here today is PDOCS Research. So we're going to go through some tools and resources that if you've ever been in any of our PDOCS kind of private client and student programs, you may have seen access to this stuff. For anybody watching now here live on Zoom or on the Facebook chat, you can just comment if you want either of these tools that we're going to go through today. At least the first two, I don't know how many I'll get into, but those two are going to be what's really most prevalent with, attacking PDOCS research and how to do that effectively, properly, and what that really means, right? So before I bring up the resources, let's talk about the importance of research in anything. Obviously, you guys know what PDOCS stands for: pains, desires, obstacles, common beliefs, or I like to put common beliefs / misconceptions, because there's a lot of misconceptions in marketplaces, and then steroids or other attention grabbers in the marketplace. So that's kind of the main focus, but generally speaking, in any business, any offer, research is going to be an aspect of what you're doing, and it's our foundation. It's our building block, right? When you build a house, you pour the foundation before you start to build out the framing, etc. And that's what the research is. What I like to look is most businesses, just to break it down simply in 3 main phases: you do the research, then you build out assets, and then you get into the business development side of things. And those are, again, stepping blocks. If we do poor or piss poor, or we, just skip over research, we're probably going to build out crappy assets that aren't going to align. And when I mean assets align, another thing I like to point out here is a lot of business owners, we create our assets, lead magnets, resources, homework assignments, entry level, front end products. We create those very often with what we think the market wants. But I like to create my assets in not alignment with necessarily my objective or what I think the market wants, but I want to align that with my clients' objectives. So when we create assets, we should be creating them for our customers. Is that in alignment with their goals, their interests, what they're trying to achieve? I think that's something that gets really overlooked. A lot of people are like, I'm going to build out this great checklist because it's going to do X, Y, and Z. And you might be right, but I would rather have that checklist, done some market research, and know that these are the big 3 problems in my marketplace. So my checklist should address this. It doesn't really matter what I think the market wants. It's more important, what the research shows and what the feedback shows. So that's going to be part of it. But I'm going to dive in and bring up some resources to screen share here with you guys. Give me one moment. And then we'll start going through these. And again, if you're watching on the Facebook group, I'm not monitoring the comments right now. So if you're watching on there, please just simply put anything in the comments as I'm going through this, whether you're watching live or on the replay. And you guys can do the same here, whoever's in the Zoom chat. In terms of the resources I bring up, if you want me to send them over to you, we're going to be going through the Master PDOCS Research Google Sheet, as well as the Starboard, which is relevant to organic. We also have a Starboard for more paid campaigns, but that's not what we're going through here today. And kind of the research and the paid would be a little different than starting off. What we primarily cover is the PDOCS research for our marketplace, our messaging, and to go in and start generating some conversations, feedback loop, and proof of concept organically. And then we usually transfer into paid. Now, if we already have proof of concept in an established business and we know the market and we've done a lot of that, sure, we can go right into that. But I don't think that's what where most people are at that are going to be, watching here. So let's screen share and go right into this stuff. So first off, for some of you guys that don't know, if I just kind of zoom out here really quickly, this is what's called our PDOCS motherboard, which inside my PDOCS client acquisition method program, this is kind of probably the best overall tool. There's all kinds of, right? There's the Kajabi modules and tutorials, certainly great. There's the live calls with myself every Thursday for all the private students. That's great. That's great for implementation and support and to really get on and screen share and let me look at what's going on in your business. But this has kind of all of the PDOCS resources that we need and kind of mapped out in a very methodical, chronological order, right? So for anybody that has access to this, they kind of know, I always have this checklist over here because people might start to do, step 9, and it's always good to know, like, have you done these and have you done these in order? So for any of my students that are kind of like, things aren't working, or where do I lead off, or what do I need to do? You can kind of always go back to your checklist. Did you dial this in? Did you dial this in? So that's a good starting point. And then within each one of those, we have kind of little lessons and boards. And this thing, like if I'm to scroll in just on like one little thing, let's see this eco framework. And then if I'm to kind of scroll into the script, like, that's 5 separate little scripts in one particular box here of a little, 1/15 of this whole board. So I'm sure you can see how much information is here. Why I'm focusing on this right now is because this is also where all my, private students can come in and get access to all these resources. Is that the one I want? Is that one? Yeah, cool. So there's a few tabs like this in this board. That's why I was looking at it. So again, I mentioned today we're going to be covering the PDOCS research sheet right here, as well as the Starboard. And we may go into some of these other things, depending on how in depth. A lot of these things are next steps after the research. So, that might be another lesson, or maybe we'll get into some of that today. But let's just start off with the PDOCS research sheet and make sure people understand it. Again, if you guys don't have this, just comment below PDOCS research sheet, no matter where you're watching, and myself or a team member will get it over. So when you first go in and see this, and I probably have to do this again just because I X'd out of the ones I had open. But first thing it says at the top, make your own copy, right? So you're going to go, because this one is just a template and one quick line, and you can't make any alterations to the base one. So you're going to go to File, Make Copy, boom, Make Copy. So now when you do that, you'll be able to change the columns, go in and edit and set it up for yourself, right? There's just that kind of first line there as a template. And you'll see at the bottom, there's 3 different tabs. I'm going to focus more on the research aspect. We're going to come back to this, the PPSC, person, problem, the seed, or the trigger word, and the congregation point, and how to use that. But what I really want to focus on is primarily the research sheet and what each column and how to fill it out. And then I want to run through a couple of clients that have filled this out, and you can see in more depth some people that shared them with me and gave me the okay to come on here and share them as well. So I'm going to dive into some of that stuff here momentarily. But first off, let's just go through these boxes and columns, right? Box A, and you're going to see a little drop-down menu. So first you want to identify what this particular thing we're going after is. So generally speaking, this is going to be good places to gather PDOCS research for what we like to call outlier posts in groups. So what an outlier post is let's say we went into the ClickFunnels group. I don't know, last time I was in there, I know they have probably north of 250,000, north of 250,000 members. And let's say we scroll back through the last 10 posts, and on average, they get 17 likes and 16 comments, right? But one of those 10 has 111 likes and 186 comments. That would be what's called an outlier post. So we want to do some research to find out, why that post performed. So the first thing we want to do is, what were they talking about? And they usually come down to one of these 4 categories. Sorry, 3 categories. Were they talking about a problem? Were they talking about a competitor, or were they talking about a specific product? You can usually narrow it down to one of those 3 categories. If not, let's say one is more solution-based. Well, solution-based either comes off of a product or a problem, right? So you can correlate it to one of those. So everything kind of falls back into one of these 3 categories vaguely. And then you're going to log the link to that post. So you're just going to copy the link, like this one would be here in column B, and you would post it in there. And that's the link in that ClickFunnels group. That's the outlier post with the extra engagement. Now you would want to put kind of a comment there, really covering the kind of gist of the post. Like, hey, this post was primarily talking about, getting over the iOS 17 update, right? Whatever it is, like, what's the basic crux of that? And more importantly, the next box is the takeaway. And that's like, why do you think this one stood out, right? Did they use a specific analogy? Like sometimes you're in a ClickFunnels group and you leverage mentioning Russell Brunson in your post, you're going to get more engagement. Is it because you had a great opener, or what we call the entry into a post, or the opener, right? So was it just a really great lead into the post, and that's what got the hook? The angle. So we just kind of want to figure out, what's my core takeaway on why this was an outlier. So this is kind of, C is more like the topic of the post, and D is more of your takeaway on why that post was an outlier and got more engagement and succeeded. And you're going to start to see some common trends in there, and that's going to give us a lot more leverage when we want to go back and look at this worksheet and be like, okay, so posts that are outliers and performings are talking about Facebook ad updates. They're talking about AI. They're talking about, new technology, right? What are the things that are, and then people might be talking about coaching or their agency, and they're getting that normal, right? 16 likes, 17 comments, that type of stuff. So we want to identify outliers. And then again, we want to put this into a category now that's got more of a drop down. This is actually 5 categories, but it's got 7 different aspects. And I'd like to explain those really quickly, because the most common question I get here, obviously in these first 2, is what's the difference between physical and emotional? And without getting super in depth, the easiest way to categorize this for you guys and anybody interested in understanding that is the physical problem is more of a problem in the now that they're feeling, right? Something keeping them up at night. Where I think an emotional problem generally speaking, relates to a past or a future issue, right? Future problems of, the cost of inaction, not achieving your goal, the time lost, all those things, the money lost. So if you're forecasting into the future or, foreshadowing, or you're looking back into the past and saying, I had this problem, that's when they're talking more from an emotional level. And I like to think physical is more in the now. Physical is, I'm sick to my stomach because my calendar's empty and I have no sales calls, right? That would be like a physical in the now problem. So when you decipher which of the 5 these are, is it a problem? Is it a desire? Is it an obstacle or a misconception? An obstacle or a challenge, a common belief, misconception, or an attention grabber or a steroid in the market. It's really cool when you can break it down more physical and emotional for these 2 in particular, because those are almost generally speaking 2 different audiences. The person in the now is going to be somebody that's obviously ready to move forward, more immediate. Whereas the emotional person is usually more of a nurture type of prospect, and it's usually a longer sales process. That's just one of the different things I've noticed, but I notice more correlations the more research I do in here, and the more I can kind of track the difference between physical and emotional problems. But physical is just an indicator of me that they're more likely to move forward quicker. So that's the basic overall sheet. When we can do this and then set up 20, 30, 40 examples over time, if you guys could just, if anybody's actually going to seriously do this, the problem with most of these spreadsheets are you comment on them and whatever in a 2-step post or on a live stream, somebody sends it over and you do it for a day, or you never do it, or you never even open it, right? But if you're going to do this, very simply, go into groups where your ideal audience is and just pick 3 a day. Pick 3 groups to go in and find an outlier post and do this research. It shouldn't take anybody more than 30 minutes. So it's not like this is something that I want people to take hours out of their day. This is a consistency thing. And whether, it's great when we're just going to market or we haven't had much success, but constant research, because markets change, trends change, hooks change, interest levels, sophistication, market level sophistication. That changes with how you become more sophisticated as a business owner, how your offers develop more, how your pricing develops. So there's a lot of variables, which is why research should be constant and not just an entry-level thing when launching a new product. It's a requirement then, in my opinion. If you're not doing market research, you're just killing yourself and shooting yourself in the foot. But constant research is certainly, you'll see a lot of businesses that run stagnant. They had success and great sales, and I made $1 million in 6 months, and then you don't see that guy 6 months later. That's because he didn't evolve with the market, the sophistication level, and he gave up on the research and just kind of rested on his laurels of 6 months of success. When we've seen those stories played over and over again, right? It leads me to be more aggressive with my research and never give up on that type of stuff. So let's go through an example or 2 before I dive into the Starboard of some more fleshed out ones. I'm going to go with this one first, and then the next one I'm going to go with one of my clients added a little mix that we're actually putting into our curriculum now for all of our paying clients on how to have AI help and do most of this research, right? When we first launched PDOCS, we didn't have the Chat GPT-4, modules that we have now. We didn't have a lot of this stuff. What's happened in AI in the last 3 years is similar to what's happened in almost every other industry in the past 25 to 50 years, how much it's evolved. It's just insane. So that's another thing that we're going to be mixing in more and more into the PDOCS stuff, and we use more and more in our own processes. In Audience Lab, there's a lot of AI, a lot of technology coming up. But you can see here on James's sheet, and I remember James who filled this out. He found that this was more competitor. He specifically was looking for competitor style of research. And that's what he came in to do. He wanted to do really deep competitor research. So he didn't really focus as much on problem or product-based types of posts. He went into more competitor groups and to find out what they're talking about. So these were all in the finance niche, as you can see in column B there. And then he put a link to each post when he located outliers. And let's just give a couple examples of what he found for comments. So gain access to the comment or the copy. So again, you could summarize, and if it's very short, you can just copy and paste the copy right in here, right? You could do that always, but I think long form, putting copy in there, you guys can just summarize. But yeah, so Gain access to up to 500,000 completely unsecured with 24 hours. These funds can be kept for growth, monthly equipment, vehicle, yada, yada, yada. So I can already kind of see what the hook is there, but I want to wait till I get over to his takeaways. I want to read one or two more of these. Find out eligible business up to 500K. That sounds very, very similar. Very similar. So one thing that I already noticed right off the bat is, although these posts are working and they're good and they're things to mimic, if he found their outliers, I'd actually have to go back and do a little research or investigating on the actual engagement. But I'm assuming, because James spent some time on this, I'm pretty sure he picked the right types of posts. But with these first 3 or 4, the same thing I'm seeing is the same thing in each one. So now I don't want to be as redundant in my market. So I want to come up with something that's a similar angle, but a totally different approach that's going to stand out from the marketplace. What I like to say when I'm seeing common trends in my research is I like to take away the strategies and the things I can mimic. I'm not going to ever copy and paste somebody else's stuff ever. I'm not telling you what to do. That's just not something I would do. I would mimic the framework and tweak it to be my verbiage, to meet with kind of my values, how I want to be portrayed, right? Some people have more relaxed approach. Some people are much more professional. Like, do it in whatever is your genuine self, or else that comes across when you're just copying pasting stuff, or you're not being authentic. Eventually the market sniffs that out. It is becoming more sophisticated. More importantly, I start to, and more specific to this sheet in competitor analysis, I start to see a lot of cringeworthy stuff when I'm going through competitor stuff. And I'm like, when I'm reading it, I'm just like, ew, and that just reiterates, like, never talk about this or never do this, Ray. So, and that also gives me great copy, right? It's like, hey, I see 10 other finance companies right now all saying the same thing. Are you an ABN holder? Get access to up to 500,000. You see the problem with this, right? And then you take a little different angle. So you're calling out the common approach that's already getting this engagement, and then you're kind of showing why they're pulling the wool over your eyes, or why there's a better solution. And then you can get into our unexpected solution or our alternate solution to the problem, depending on what our company does. So those are some things I think about just when really quickly looking at James's initial research there. His takeaways, I'm guessing, are probably going to be very similar, because these posts were so similar. Large amount offered, exactly, and fast. So that is the takeaway. That's what you keep seeing here: large amount fast. Large amount business relief scheme approved. That one's a little more in depth. And then I like how he even defined the problems. I actually think he did a good job there. I think this one is more of kind of like an in the now. This one is similar, but I understand why this could be more of a desire. I mean, why this could be more in the emotional, specifically, in talking about like the day-to-day, what it could be used for. That's going to get people future pacing and thinking about the past when they didn't have a vehicle, or the vehicle they might be able to afford now. So I that's the subtle differences that James did a good job picking up on here, that I wanted to kind of elaborate or articulate here, that I can't really do on a little 5-minute tutorial, or at least without going over some customer research. So yeah, James did a pretty nice job there. Looks like he really only tracked about 5 or 7 posts total. I'd like to see if this long form one's much different. And I like how they dive right into how to save and buy your dream car today. Wouldn't it be how to save for? Either way, buying how to save, yeah. New cars, new car smells. So exactly, this is definitely pulling on the emotional, right? You're kind of putting yourself in the moment of, oh, I remember that new car smell, or man, I haven't had that in a while. I've been driving used cars for the last 10 years. I'm due for that smell, right? So cool. I see exactly what they're doing, and I think he categorized these very well. What was the core takeaway there? Save time and money. We offer unmatched service. I don't think the unmatched service was super relevant there. Everybody's going to say we offer unmatched service. Who says somebody else offers service just as good as me? No company ever comes out and says that. But that's a quick little overview on that stuff. Any questions on that? Again, if you guys want this research sheet sent over to you, the main copy to start with, just let me know in the comments wherever you're watching, and put any questions, and I'll try to address those. Now, this is kind of, again, talking about future pacing. This was one of my clients who filled this out for his CPT method. Jesse, one of my students for years, Jesse and I have worked together. He is a fitness pro, fitness trainer, fitness nutrition expert. He's also a full-time law enforcement officer that is now transitioning into, I think he's at the point where he's kind of replaced his full-time income, and he's kind of entertaining the job entertaining, making the leap of his dream of doing this full time. So we're about at that point. Jesse was always really great with research, even when he filled these out manually. But he gave me this little template on how he used some certain chat GPT prompts to streamline his research and do it much quicker. Now, the way he formatted this is weird. So I'm sorry if you guys see this big black box and can't see all the way. Maybe I didn't come in and format something right, but you're going to want to focus on this bottom little section of this big black box where I'm kind of hovering my mouse. Yeah, again, maybe I just didn't format something right, but it's not letting me scroll, and I'm getting a pop-up that says it's not, this Google sheet isn't formatted to fit your browser properly. So I don't know, maybe it's just a copy you sent me over. I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but if you'll see down here, we have diagnosed column C problem, and probably if we scroll down over here, I'm curious to see. Okay, I got it. I wish I could see the whole thing. Problem, then column D, when you go through the exact post or the content, and he did a quick little summary, or I think GPT did this for him, a quick little summary, and then pasted the link right in there. And then this is kind of the takeaways that he had from the post, the continuous fluctuation of being super focused, great results, healthy, high input, high output. So those are all in Jesse's niche and industry. Those are a lot of key triggers and hooks in the market. You know, they talk about energy inputs and outputs, micros and macros, fluctuations, super focus, big crash, right? I see a lot of those keywords in his takeaways. So, I mean, ChatGPT, I think, did probably a pretty good job there. This one was much more direct, could lose weight easy in my 20s, much easier in my 20s than when I'm in my 30s or 40s. That definitely happens, even more so when you get older. I think we all know that, whoever's watching, right? Believes weight loss get harder as they age, which, yeah, your body does. But if you have a plan, and that's what Jesse, again, misconception, it's really weight loss doesn't get harder. What gets harder potentially is your habits get longer and longer of not being dialed into your optimal fitness goals, right? I think habits are a big part of this, especially in fitness. And I'm not going to pretend to be no fitness guru. That's not my niche. But man, this pulled out some really good stuff. This would fall into the mindset. If I can get these kind of results eating normally, what can I achieve if I went more extreme? That's probably a great takeaway from that post. And then the mindset trap, believing that more extreme work leads to greater results. Can in certain cases, but we all know, everybody talks about the 80-20 rule, right? How can we do the 20% of activity or effort to get the 80% result? So yeah, this is really, really cool. I got my AI internal guy working on embedding this into our master sheet. And when that's finalized and working right, and we're not seeing formatting issues and little things, I can also give you that one, guys. But yeah, I mean, having the AI leverage and being able to do a good chunk of this research, again, this isn't anything time consuming, but I'm sure, you know, GPT does it in seconds and can do dozens and hundreds of posts, right? But you got to make sure you still have it set up to identify outliers. So I have to look into, and that's what my team members looking into, like how did we really set parameters to identify outlier posts? Because if we're just getting common posts in here that are getting very little or average to below average engagement, that's not going to be great research. Outliers are essential for this. But yeah, we're going to be looking into this a little more, and how to make this more repeatable. He also went into the 7A framework, which is in there. That's awesome. I'm not going to cover that here today, but this is something for a future session. If you guys weren't kind of aware of the 7 different A's with attention, acknowledge, agitate, authority, angst, ambiguity, and appeal. That's in a lot of what we do with our marketing assets and building that stuff out. As I talked about, kind of phase 2 after the research comes into building out assets. And again, assets that align with your prospects and their interests, and not what you think they want or what aligns with your expertise. It's great whatever your expertise is, but if you're attracting an audience that's not the best fit for the best result, then you need to either switch your audience or gain a new skill set that can help that particular person. So another thing I want to cover before we start running low on time, I'm just going to X out these sheets. I'll go back and do that after. Doesn't really matter. Back into the Miro board again, and let's look at the PDOCS Starboard, and this is the organic version. Again, I also have a paid Starboard, which is built in Airtable. Very similar. Airtable and Trello are very, very similar. Airtable, we can do some more, and we have some more kind of internal stuff. I think Trello, we just use more for templates and boards we create for customers and clients, and not quite as much internal. But again, when you guys get this, if anyone wants this, please comment Starboard in the comments here or in the Facebook group, whether you're watching now or on the replay, and we'll get that over to you. But I want to show you kind of how this works, right? So first, we're going to start with our group vault. And I have a document that I started with when I first started organic, and my first little consultancy, when it was just Jesse and I and a 2-man consultancy. We grew that within about I don't know, 4 months to from 0 to 40K a month, just two guys, just Facebook groups, no ads, no VA, no AI, no nothing, right? There's two guys and Facebook groups and some time and effort to put into it. And I mapped out kind of a core 15 entrepreneurial based coaching, consulting agency, that type of industry where I had success. And those were the groups that really launched me. I literally just joined 15 groups, did all this stuff and got to 40K a month in a handful of months or less, right? But first off is kind of having your group vaults. So this would be a good place if you guys, don't already have select groups, or when you're joining them. This is just kind of the formula or the few criteria you want to look for, right? You want to log the group name, the number of members versus posts in the last month. So we're looking for group name, number of members. Certainly there's pros and cons to both. Sometimes you're going to find a lot better ideal clients in a little 3,000 person intimate group than you will in a 250,000 person ClickFunnels or Tony Robbins group or what have you. But in terms of for the research, I would go more for probably larger groups. But now that I'm starting, this is more built in terms of building out the plan to start to execute my organic implementation and strategy and execution, right? So here, I kind of want a mix of large groups and smaller member groups. I'm just looking more for the groups with my ideal clients and that are going to have more engagement. One thing and why we're tracking posts with outliers and people who are commenting and things like that is because, believe it or not, people who actually engage and comment and interact in the Facebook groups, those are the buyers. The people that are in the group, the 80% sitting in the corner that just consume content, they're probably never going to buy anything anyways. So we want to try to get in with people who are engaging, and that's why we want to create content that engages, right? But it's good to kind of know the number of members versus posts in the last month, and you'll build out your group vaults. Like here's just like a quick little example. And this is at the time when we built it. I'm sure I already know by this is a Steve Larson group. I'd be guessing, I don't know when Adam built this particular template, but I'd be guessing this group has way more than 16,000 members now, right? And it's just, that would take you right over to the group and gives you a little description about the group and who's in it. And is this my ideal audience, right? That's one thing you want to know right off the bat. So you want to log the title of the group, how many members, I don't see it here, he should have how many posts, and then a group description and a link to it. And that's all we're really tracking right off the bat with the groups we're going to start. Here's another one, good friend of mine, and I know Sean's group has way more than 1,300 members, but a friend of mine, Sean Kemp, runs this group. He's one of the best copywriters. He may be the best copywriter that I know. He's not cheap, but phenomenal. Sean's a great dude. So at the time, his group had about 1,300 members, group description there. Launch with less, copywriting, ads, content, and sales, right? Like those are the four things businesses need. I'm sure we can find some others, right? But those are all key components and very well done. So that's just like the first couple of groups, right? Then we can give you the skeleton swipe files, where we're going to put the group name and identify lead types. You guys all probably have known, well, maybe not everybody watching this, depending on how new you are. But I have a great training on the lead types, and we'll go through that super quickly here. Here are the 6 different lead types. And it's great when you can identify these. This guy's actually made a really, really big difference to me. I was already doing organic, and I had got to that point, like I said, Jesse and I, got from 0 to 10K and then from 10 to 40K. It took us a couple months to get from that 0 to 10K to get dialed in and land our first client or two. Once we did, we went from 10 to 40 in like 60 days. And then what really had the biggest help is that's right around when I met Adam and got into the PDOCS method. And once I learned this made a whole difference, because I had certain posts and content that I created, and I was kind of scratching my head saying, why isn't this getting engagement? Why aren't people commenting, right? And I realized it was just simply swapping out the lead type. So the lead type is just your first sentence in any post. That's the easiest way to break it down. And the 6 different types of lead types correlate very closely to your market awareness or sophistication level. So if you can identify the market awareness and sophistication level within a group, that would really help us. So I don't have the graph up and I'm not going to dive into it right now, but I do have a whole training with a graph on this. But a story-based post or a story-based lead would be for your most unaware and least sophisticated audience. Somebody that knows nothing about Ray, PDOCS, his company, anything about his backstory, what he does. They just know nothing. They just joined your group today or just sent you a friend request or added you today, brand new. Story-based post. You have to be able to connect, build a little of that know, like, trustability. People, the first day you meet them, if you come in and drop your offer, I mean, how good does that work? Do you guys like when the first second, you connect with somebody, they're shooting you an offer? I don't like it, so I don't do it, right? That's my number one rule for organic. If somebody does it to me and it rubs me the wrong way, I automatically scrap that from my strategy. Quick little tip, but a lot of people just don't even take the time to comprehend and be like, oh, I don't like that, but I'm doing it. Like, that doesn't equate. If you don't like it, you probably shouldn't do it because your audience probably isn't going to like it. But again, story-based post. And I have a great little, 5-step formula for stories. If you want that, let me know. It worked really, really well. I've been using that for over 3 years in my emails, my posting. Proclamation is, again, that's when you're getting to still a low sophistication or lower awareness of you, but a proclamation is just one brief statement. That's your lead, your first sentence that's going to disarm the reader, right? Change the way you run Facebook ads today or else, right? Or die, whatever, like make it extreme, something. That's what the lead in is. It's to gather their attention. We all know the studies and the psychology. You got about 8 seconds to grab somebody's attention. I keep seeing studies that say it's even less and less than that, whatever it is, but it's your first line, whether it's audio, whether it's a video, whether it's copy that's written, doesn't really matter. Like that's what's going to get them, right? So a proclamation is just a bold statement to disarm a reader. Secret-based lead is pretty simple, right? 3 secrets today I can give you that if you implement these, you're going to have 100 more followers by the end of the week, right? Whatever it is, 3 secret leads to lose 5 pounds in the next 10 days, whatever, right? Problem solution is probably my favorite. And now let me just run you through the sophistication and awareness level. So there's unaware, there becomes problem aware, and that's where you start to get into problem aware is your still on the lower end of the spectrum, but that's more where you would use your proclamation, still maybe stories and maybe secret, depending on how aware, but product aware, problem aware just means that these guys are starting to realize that they have a problem. My Facebook ads are converting. I'm overweight, whatever it is, right? They sometimes we have to make people problem aware. We have to take them. The story is your unaware market, totally unaware. So we relate with a story and then we use a proclamation or a secret to kind of make them aware of the problem and help them get problem aware if they aren't. Then as you get into the next level from problem aware, you go to solution aware. So once you realize that you have a problem with anything, you start to look for solutions. All of a sudden, because you've typed this problem, you're probably getting hit with solutions in your Google feed, in your ads, right? Facebook, whatever it is. We all know once you type anything, hell, it seems like once you think it nowadays, you're getting targeted with it for crying out loud. But yeah, so again, we're going to go unaware, problem aware, solution aware, and then product aware is next. So once they start as solution aware and start to realize that, okay, my Facebook ads aren't converting, product aware is the next step when you're actually actively starting to look at different offers. That's when you realize there's a do-it-yourself course or a done with you coach or a done for you agency, right? You start to look at different price points, different offers, and start to see what's out there in the market. So that would be kind of, again, your product aware. And then it goes from product aware to basically most aware. And that is kind of an offer ready audience. They know your story. They know what kind of solutions you provide, right? So that's the awareness level. Now, where I left off describing these, problem solution is my favorite and I find most applicable because that's really good for your product and solution aware audiences, both. So kind of your mid to upper scale sophistication or awareness level. And the problem solution post is basically just this. List the common problem. Hey, since iOS 17 update, your Facebook ad costs have gone up 2x, right? Then you list the common solution. What most people would tell you is to hire a media buyer and a done-for-you ad agency. And then all of a sudden you highlight why the mainstream solution is BS. Overpriced. Agencies getting fired every 30 days for lack of results. You need a separate media buyer and a creative guy because the same guy does whatever it is, right? You point out like the problem and then you inject your unexpected solution. So that's kind of a problem solution. Mainstream problem, the mainstream solution, why that's BS. Here's an alternative and this is why this is better. What's your thoughts on it? What's the better solution for you going forward? When you do that right, they're usually going to say, damn right, that's a lot better than the mainstream stuff I've been hearing about. A promise-based lead is something, again, when people are well aware of you, it's one quick statement that is very close to your offer. So it's a quick correlation. Hey, what if I promised you I could get 10 calls on your calendar by the end of the week? And that's one aspect of what I do in my PDOCS program is help people book. So if my post starts off with a promise and then the rest of the post, the meat and the potatoes, does its job in terms of creating intrigue or value or whatever it was designed to do, right? Then people are going to show some interest there. And then it's a quick little segue into, cool, man, you said you wanted to get the 10. So I have this cool little free training on how I think you can do that. That's also one component of my private student program that I help people get hands-on results with. Would you be interested in looking at that a little more? Oh, sure, man, whatever, right? So a promise-based lead is to a more aware, more sophisticated audience that already knows about you, your company, what you do, and you just make a quick promise that gets them a portion of what probably your full offering or skill set or program can deliver. And then an offer-based lead is exactly what it sounds. So like I do on Black Friday, I go into my timeline and only my Facebook group. Outside of sometimes I'll run ads, right? But like I only go to a warm audience with offers. I don't go to brand new people. I'll post that in my group of people that have been following me, buying my stuff, going through it for years. I'll make an offer-based post because they're like, oh, I like Ray. I know Ray. I've already been in his stuff. I trust him. If he's selling it, I'm buying it, right? I get all kinds of cool comments like that because I'm making that to a very aware, sophisticated audience that I've already built up the trust, the likability, and that know me. So that's kind of a good little gist of how that does. So sometimes my whole point with this was sometimes your post is great and it's going to engage, and I go in and tweak that opener. And once I really, again, correlated the openers or the lead types to the sophistication level of that audience in that particular group, I started to have a lot of success. I was like, oh man, I was using more offer and promise-based leads, more toward like my lower level problem or maybe solution or even unaware audiences. And that's why they weren't working, and vice versa. I was using like story-based stuff on like my timeline, which is like all these people already know me. They know my backstory. They don't want to hear it again. So I had to just really figure out, okay, and I would go in and use my same post on why it didn't work. And I tweak the lead type. And then all of a sudden it was an outlier, got all kinds of engagement. So sometimes it's those subtle little tweaks. And I just wanted to kind of cover that in depth there so everybody understood. Otherwise, you're going to be like, okay, lead types, what the hell do those all mean? So now everybody should have a pretty good understanding. And these all break down into what we call our kind of SES framework. Basically, all of these type of posts and groups and the description, you're going to see that when we are structuring our content, we want to have a certain style for how we're structuring our content. We want to tap into an emotion, and we also want to have a structure. And the style correlates to the lead type as well. Like what's the sophistication level? What style of post am I using? Am I using a story-based post? Am I using a value-based post? Am I using a whatever? And then the lead type plays in conjunction with that. Yeah, so that's kind of how that works. And here's an example of that, right? So this is one we built out. So this was in the coaching jungle. This was a promise-based lead. Here's a little description about the post, or it'll take you to the actual post. Style, asking a simple, non-biased question. Emotion, interested, and the structure, they just put the post in there. What is the best way to achieve the biggest desire? What is the way you have sold out your coaching program while still focusing on? Lead type, he didn't put in this one. Yeah, he did at the top, right? Lead, promise lead. Okay. So you can either check it or just log it in there. But that's just like a quick little overview of this type of post and this type of research. Now, these posts in here, as opposed to the other one, these were logging posts that we did, right? What we did, in what group, what type of lead type, and then we can track engagement. So that's kind of the example. And you'll obviously slide some of these along as they go. Some of these will stay in these columns. If they're group vault, they're not going to change, but certain things will kind of slide over, and you'll see how that works. PDOCS backlog, this is just anything we have, angles that we know work that we're just currently not using or haven't used in a while that we might recycle. So we just kind of have a backlog of angles. We have this for all of our businesses. We have a key set of angles for our sales lab company, a key set of angles and hooks for audience lab, key set for PDOCS. And if you ever just kind of get astray or kind of lose focus, just go back to your core angles. So we usually log those there. These would be all our work in progress posts, which we might have written and published, and we're just kind of waiting to find the right group. Maybe we already posted enough today. But this is where you're going to start creating and batching your content and posts that you're doing. So let's look at a quick little example, right? So here's his lead type, and he's using a proclamation, which is exactly that, right? Some offensive ideas that might disarm readers. That's a good example of a proclamation. Once you say offensive, you probably already offended or disarmed somebody, right? What is this offensive idea? You say, well, check out this direct quote. I give you all my frameworks for the process, yada, yada, yada. Just want to see motion structure. Yeah, that looks like a pretty solid post. I see the gist of it. But anyway, that's just one example, and there's tons of them in here, right? But and this is the same thing as the other one. If you guys do request this, at the top you'll see make your own copy. You're going to want to go in and obviously make your own copy. You're not going to be able to edit the base one. Then of course I would take this and slide it over to live when I posted it, right? So once I posted it, boom, slide it over to live. Oops, I didn't get the edited version either because I didn't log in. Not that I need to slide it over, you guys all get it, but slide it over to live. And then the last thing we're really tracking is winners and losers. So which ones got our expected level of engagement, or at least above average in the group? Ideally, we want them to be our own outlier posts, but as long as they're getting above average engagement, you're doing at least something right, and we can get them. So whatever winning posts you want to stack in here, posts that didn't get enough engagement or that were just, horrible losers, you might want to put in here, or you might use the analysis one. So sometimes my losers, I shelve and put for analysis when I really think it was a good post, and I'm trying to why the hell didn't I want to put it in for analysis and maybe test a couple other lead types, maybe reword something. Maybe there's just a better way to go about getting my point across. And I just need to realize that. A lot of times when we write or say something, we totally get it, but we might not have put it in the perspective of the reader, and just changing the way that is positioned and phrased to somebody can ultimately change the engagement. So a lot of times I'm going to shelve for analysis, and then these are just more resources we give you guys access to here. Our How Hero script, our warm script, so basically one for a cold, warm, and hot different audiences, and then other resources and trainings that all go in conjunction or coordination with this. This first one is pretty cool, this trigger list and badge mining. This shows you how to go in groups and find the people who've been awarded badges, right? So we see like virtual storyteller, contributor, whatever it is, admin. I try to stay away from the admin and moderator, but there's about 8 or 10 different badges that people get. Now, when you can identify those people in groups, those people only get badges because they engage. So I would, if I'm going to go into a group with my objective of find some ideal audience and connect with, and people that I might want to see my content on my timeline, maybe I want to get them into my group, whatever. I want to target people that I know are already engaging and active. So just by doing a little research in this exercise and then pulling up trigger lists and badge mining, we can make sure we're connecting with people who actually engage with content. That way they're more likely to move forward and buy, as I talked about earlier. KPI, scheduling links, obviously that will be different, but just a little board here to keep all of your resources that you're going to need in the process to optimize and get better and better at this. But yeah, I mean, these boards are super effective when people actually use them. Again, research sheet, Starboard. I mean, my main caveat is I don't know how many people comment on these things, or I've sent them to, or even pay to get my program. And I've never once seen them bring it up, open it, fill it out, or be consistent. So that's only on you guys. If this is a priority and doing some deep market research and getting your organic Facebook group and content systemized, having a way to track it and batch it all out, cool, use this. It'll be helpful. If it's not your primary objective, don't, you know what I mean? But yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to cover. Good. I got it done in right around 45 minutes. I don't necessarily have time to jump into the other resources. So the next step is when we get into assets. I'll probably make that my next lesson 2 weeks from now, because it plays right off of this. And I think another topic on my poll this week that got pretty good engagement, finished third in the voting, I want to say, was creating lead magnets, which also goes into play with the assets. So that might be a great topic playing right off of the research. This week's live stream, as well as it got decent interest from the people who voted. So I think I'll probably make that my topic in 2 weeks. You guys may or may not know, whoever's watching, I do these weekly, once 1 week on Thursdays. I'm teaching lessons and doing internal PDOCS stuff. I might have team members on with a different skill set to teach something. The opposite week, as many of you guys know, every other week on Thursdays, I have on an expert guest speaker, which I already have my next couple lined up all the way through February, probably into March. So I'll make an announcement about that early next week about who's coming on and what we're going to cover in the next week's live stream. But my point with all that, so it'd be 2 weeks from today when I dive into the next one, where I believe I'm going to cover building out assets, lead magnets, and how to take this research and start to build out assets in alignment with your market and your prospects' desires and the transformation that they're looking for within that marketplace or that industry. So really quickly, if anybody on the Zoom here wants to unmute or ask any questions or give any feedback, that'd be great before I hop off. I see some comments in the Facebook too, but I'll go check that after. I try to not do that while I'm on the live. But yeah, I'm just going to stay silent for a second. If anyone wants to unmute and give me any feedback or takeaways, that'd be great. Yeah, go ahead, JP. Feel free. I'm not hearing you. It looks like you're unmuted, but for some reason, I'm not hearing you. 5-step story structure? Yeah, sure. I'll send that over to you, Nelly.
Hey Ray, it's JP again.
How are you, buddy?
Thank you. Doing good. How are you?
I'm well. I'm busy as shit, but I'm good.
Yeah, I hear you. Amen to that. That's a good problem to have. Just wanted to thank you for the generosity. What a wonderful tutorial and just a masterclass on how you folks over at PDOCS put all of this together. Amazing map, amazing grid. I'm a huge fan of SOPs and repeatable processes, and you've obviously mastered that, and you and your team are exemplary, world-class at that. So thank you again, and I look forward to getting the offer that you had mentioned. Definitely going to sign up for your membership, as well as the map that was covered here today. That's all for me today. I'll talk to you offline. Thank you for your time. See you soon.
For
sir.
sure.
Take care.
I saw some voice notes from you come through last night. I'll get to that today. My DMs got mobbed. I haven't got back to everybody, but I'll get to you by the end of the day, JP.
Oh no, this is separate and above from that. The training today was amazing. And
No, I get it. I'm just letting you know I saw those, and I'm going to get back to you by the end of the day.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. And again, thank you for the training, amazing insights. And I look forward to jumping into your private membership soon. So we'll get that going very, very soon. Thank you.
Cool. I appreciate that. Thank you for the feedback. And yeah, that is something that's important and I think essential in business is having those repeated templated processes, but they also can't sacrifice quality, right? They have to be in depth enough to cover the objective of what we're trying to accomplish. Like research, you can only strip it down so much before it becomes irrelevant. And that's what we tried to do. Get to the base of what's needed, but also not water it down. And that's kind of your happy medium when doing any repeatable SOPs and processes that I've noticed over the years with creating them. It's like, do we do too in depth, or is it getting watered down enough and is not getting the same effect as somebody manually doing it themselves? And through a lot of trial and error, I think we've mapped that out pretty good. So I appreciate that.
One quick follow-up to that, if I may.
Yeah.
You said something really important that I thought was incredible, not only for myself, but for my team who's also here, but for everyone else who's watching and listening. But there's a ton of copy-paste cowboys out here, and you made it a point to understand the difference between learning from deep market research, formulating your own structure, and then revamping versus simply copy-pasting someone else's work, which is just unconscionable. So thank you for making that distinction. We need to hear more of that in the professional world in our industry. So thank you.
Good catch. Good catch. Yeah, I'm glad you picked up on that. Yeah, I can't stand copy and paste stuff. A, it's not ethical or integral in my opinion. But B, the market picks up on that stuff really quick and you just become just another guy in the market. So, I mean, there's pros and cons. It's quicker to copy and paste anything, but what's the end result? You and I talked about this before, JP. Your reputation, you only have one shot with it. Once you burn it, you burn it. You know what I mean? And it's just not worth it for saving a few minutes to do something short but not right. And people always ask me like, is that easy? Well, if it's worthwhile, it's probably not easy. So no, it's not always easy to do the longer approach, but it is worthwhile and it gets you a better result than the easy way. So that's my main distinction, but great catch there. Okay, guys, I appreciate all the feedback. I got to run here off to another one, but I will send over anything that people commented and asked for. And Nelly, I'll get you my little structure there. And thanks everybody for chiming in. I appreciate you attending.